Good morning and welcome to today's New York City Council hearing for the Committee on Transportation. At this time, we ask that you silence all cell phones and electronic devices to minimize disruptions throughout the hearing. We thank you for your cooperation. Chairperson, we are ready to begin.
Got wood in my nail from this thing. Good morning and welcome to this hearing of the Committee on Transportation and Infrastructure. I am Sylvina Brooks Powers, the chair of the committee. Today we will be voting on 3 bills and 1 resolution. Proposed intro number 679A, sponsored by Councilmember Joseph, in relation to the installation of traffic calming devices in senior pedestrian zones. Proposed intro number 805A, sponsored by the Public Advocate, in relation to pedestrian safety reporting. Proposed intro number 854A, sponsored by myself, in relation to new daylighting measures. And resolution number 460, sponsored by Councilmember Farias, calls on the New York State Legislature and Governor to fully fund the Metropolitan Transportation Authority, also known as MTA, in the state's upcoming fiscal year 2024 budget in an effort to ensure that public transit riders have effective, affordable public transportation. The MTA maintains fiscal stability in the face of a looming fiscal cliff, and the MTA operate more frequent bus and train services statewide. This committee prioritizes making our streets safe for all. It has been the subject of several committee hearings so far this year and the subject of 3 bills we are voting on today. As this administration continues to implement Vision Zero throughout the city, it is our job to constantly check and ensure that what is being done is working and to legislate where more work needs to be done. This is why I have called for a vote today on legislation that would improve street safety in New York City while working towards a safer, more equitable city. This legislation represents a first step, and we expect to continue having hearings and legislating on these issues in the coming months. As my colleagues will be speaking on their legislation, I want to highlight proposed intro number 854A, sponsored by myself, which would require the Department of Transportation to implement daylighting at no less than 100 intersections per year beginning in 2025. Daylighting involves preventing vehicles from occupying certain areas near an intersection in order to expand sight lines for those approaching the intersection. The purpose of daylighting is to increase visibility for pedestrians and drivers to oncoming traffic and ultimately reduce injuries or deaths due to obstructed visibility. In addition to implementing daylighting at a minimum of 100 intersections per year, the Department of Transportation will also be required, whenever certain criteria are met, to install daylighting barriers such as bollards, bike racks, or any other physical infrastructure. Finally, the proposed bill requires the Department of Transportation annually report on the locations at which daylighting has been implemented and those where it has been discontinued. I believe daylighting is an efficient safety measure that can prevent injuries and deaths in our cities, and that is why I am proud to have sponsored this bill. I look forward to voting on this proposed bill and the 2 other proposed bills and 1 resolution. I will now allow my fellow co-sponsors on the other pieces of legislation that is being voted on today to provide an opening statement. I will start with Councilmember Joseph on proposed intro number 679A.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, colleagues and advocates. Today I stand before you with honor and pride in asking you to vote favorably on my proposed bill, Intro 679A, a local law to amend the Administrative Code of the City of New York in relations and installation of traffic calming devices in senior pedestrian zones. This bill is about protecting our seniors. It is about safety. Transportation safety is real in our communities. Our constituents, primarily our seniors, have been calling continuously for better laws to help them keep them safe in the streets within their communities. This bill is doing just that. By voting yes to my bill, Intro 679A, you're contributing to keeping our seniors safe. Special thanks to my colleagues, CM Mealy, Lewis, Ressler, Hanif, Hudson, Sanchez, Juan, Gutierrez, Brennan, Riley, Showman, Caban, Farias, Aviles, and Narcisse, who are co-sponsors of that bill. Thank you.
Thank you. Now we will hear from the public advocate on proposed intro number 805A.
First of all, let's go Knicks. Second, thank you so much to the chair. As was mentioned, my name is Jemani Williams. I'm the public advocate of the City of New York. I want to thank the chair, Brooks Powers, and the members of the Committee on Transportation and Infrastructure for holding this vote. One of the bills being voted on today is Introduction 085. My bill will require the Department of Transportation to conduct comprehensive studies of traffic crashes involving pedestrian fatalities or serious injuries every 4 years. DOT would analyze the conditions and factors behind crashes and develop strategies to improve pedestrian safety. Strategies may include the installation of audible pedestrian signals and devices to support those with sight, hearing, and mobility impairments, and modifying citywide traffic operations policy. This bill would also require DOT to make publicly available reports on crash investigations from the preceding 3-month period. Each report shall include the total number of investigations completed, all evidence and data collected per investigation, any potential criminal wrongdoing, factors that may have contributed to each crash, and whether changes to street design or improvements to infrastructure could reduce the risk or subsequent serious vehicle crashes and recommendations. This bill will be a starting point in the larger movement to address the ongoing silent epidemic of traffic violence, which has taken so many lives every year. New Yorkers deserve to walk their streets, ride their bikes and micro-mobility vehicles, and be on the road safely and out of harm's way. We know that every traffic death is preventable if we make improvements and changes to street infrastructure and pedestrian safety. To meet the critical moment in our street safety landscape, we must invest in our communities, especially those in traffic corridors that for years have seen incalculable loss, and pass policy and legislation addressing traffic violence in order to achieve collective safety. Thank you to all my colleagues who are supporting on this bill in the council, who were sponsored, and I look forward to the passage and implementation of this bill, and look forward to making changes around the 2 biggest things that we can prevent, which is gun violence and traffic crashes and violence. Thank you.
Thank you. And finally, to Councilmember Farias on resolution number 460.
Thank you so much, Chair. Good morning, everyone. It has now been 27 days and counting since the state's budget's deadline. While we're still waiting for the state's finalized budget, the Council is making our commitment to transit equity known. Today, we will be voting on my bill, Reso 460, which calls on Governor Kathy Hochul to fully fund the MTA and make 6-minute service a reality for New Yorkers citywide. 6-minute service would create a faster, safer, and more accessible system for our outer borough communities like mine who rely on our trains to get us to and from work, school, and citywide recreation. This is something all New Yorkers need right now, and while we still have time to make life-saving choices for New Yorkers, this needs to be included in our state budget. While this is a resolution calling on the state, Resolution 460 is about the city. And as a city council member who is dedicated to transit equity and justice, I'm proud to see that the council is in full support of 6-minute service and Resolution 460. Thank you to all the co-sponsors and supporters of this bill. Thank you, Chair, for giving me time and bringing this up for vote. I'm really excited about it today.
I will now ask the committee clerk to conduct a roll call vote on the legislation and recommend that my colleagues vote yes on these important pieces of legislation.
Good morning, William Martin, Committee Clerk, roll call vote, Committee on Transportation and Infrastructure. Items are coupled. Chair Brooks Powers.
Aye on all, and congratulations to my colleagues.
Rivera.
I vote aye.
Thank you. Lewis.
Aye on all, and congratulations to all bill sponsors.
Farias.
I proudly vote aye on all.
Lee.
Aye on all.
Narcisse.
Aye on all, and congratulations to all my colleagues.
Ressler.
Aye, and congrats to my colleagues.
Williams.
Aye on all.
Carr.
No on introduction 854A, and aye on the rest.
Ariola.
No on intro 679A, and aye on all the rest.
You ready? One moment, please. Thank you. Councilmember Kagan.
Hold on 1 second. That was an error. That was an error.
Councilmember Ariola.
I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. Which one was it? Which is that? This is Alina. I'm sorry. It was 854A. Apologies. And aye on all the rest.
Thank you. Councilmember Kagan.
I on all except of intro 854A. 854A, I vote no, and yes on everything else.
Thank you. Vote Committee on Transportation. Introductions 805A and 679A are adopted by the committee with 11 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, and no abstentions. And introduction 854A is adopted by the committee with 8 in the affirmative, 3 in the negative, and no abstentions. Apologies. Also, Resolution 460 is adopted by the committee with 11 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, and no abstentions.
With that, this vote is recessed. Oh, no, sorry. With that, the vote is adjourned.
Ending.